So here's the thing with homemade meals. Eating them is great, but all the chopping and measuring and cleanup, not so much. With new one-pan assemble and bake meals from Blue Apron, you get all the flavor of homemade meals with a fraction of the work. Just assemble the pre-chopped ingredients, bake in the oven, and enjoy. Shop Assemble and Bake at BlueApron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit BlueApron.com/terms for more.
There's been a major signing this week.
Oh, what was that?
They have. United have signed Bulova as a new sponsor. They'll become the club's official timekeeper.
Actually, United did announce a signing this week, a very exciting young teenage prospect from Ireland whose name escapes me at the moment, but I saw some people being a bit snarky about that, but there's nothing at all wrong with United signing promising teenagers. It's what builds the future of the club. Yeah, new watch manufacturers signed. Do you know anything about them, Ed? As a watch connoisseur, as I'm sure you might be.
I have absolutely no idea. But reading the press release, which was released to the New York Stock Exchange, as all fine announcements are doing, including United's fact that they're on Ren and Tencent and Instagram and all variety of other major social platforms. No, they were established in the United States in 1875. They're a world leader in the manufacturing of timepieces and clocks, apparently. I'm well out of this world. I just use my phone, or sometimes I look at the sun.
Yeah, to guess what time it is. The Sun newspaper, of course, ran with the story, talking of Manchester United's social networking presence. They ran with the story some time ago that the announcement of Cristiano Ronaldo's signature for Manchester United would happen on August the 8th. But no, they just read the memo wrong, and what was announced on August the 8th was Manchester United's official Instagram and, perhaps most significantly, Google Plus. Manchester United on Google Plus, so that if you're a Google employee and want to interact with Manchester United, you can.
Yeah, no one else does. Apparently, the Bulova timepieces were used on Apollo 11, first moon landing. Which, frankly, given that we know this was made in a studio, is about as believable as United signing Mesut Ozil, which was in the papers today.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it, the transfer situation? I guess before we get back, before we look at actual football and the Community Shield, should we jump into a bit of transfer talk?
Oh, we love it. It's no frustration there.
None at all. I mean, it's kind of gone a little bit quiet this week, except that David Moyes said he was getting closer to making a signing. The idea that we were doing a double swoop for Fellaini and Baines ran on the back page of the Guardian. And then Luka Modric talk has started up all over again. Now, there's a transfer signing I would get ridiculously excited about, but again, doesn't seem to be fully on the cards.
No, well, look, who knows where all of this is coming from. I suspect it's mainly newspapers needing to fill column inches and United needing a midfielder, and there you go, 2 and 2 makes an awful lot of speculation. Of course, Modric and Fellaini and Fabregas and Alcantara and Ozil are all completely different kinds of players, and this is kind of the point I've been making several times. Shouldn't they be on the same sort of ballpark? Fabregas and Fellaini aren't even the same sport, let alone in the ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's understandable, but then the slight flip side of that is we do have a variety of different needs in our midfield. The midfield needs are not necessarily as simple as we need one particular type of player.
Oh, yeah.
But we had a question asking what United need more in the middle of the park is steel or style. The question on exactly the point that you've just made, that we do seem to be in for very different types of players. I mean, I think the answer is we definitely need a bit of both, right?
Well, look, if Moyes is going to set up in his kind of normal formation, which he did at Everton quite a lot, which was pretty much the same as Sir Alex played last season, which is effectively 2 holding players and then 3 in front of them and a target man, then United probably do need a ball player to complement Cleverley in the centre of the park, because Cleverley's gone on and off the boil, not always fit. Anderson is never fit. Darren Fletcher is never fit. So a passing player is needed. But I think several games last season where United were out-muscled, so a bit of evilness in there would help too. So For me, it's two players, but of course, that's worse than idle speculation. That's just hope, and it's the hope that kills you, isn't it? Because right now, it doesn't look like anything's going to come off.
Cristiano Ronaldo got everybody overexcited by being rumoured to be in Manchester earlier in the week. 2 days after Antonio Valencia handed in the number 7 shirt. And that happened just before the kick-off of the Community Shield. So I guess we should talk about that because it was a football match that happened. And United were very functional. You were there, Ed. What was it like?
Very muted and very flat. Not a fantastic performance from United, not a poor one either. It was just kind of flat on the pitch and very flat off it. There were about 3 Wigan fans, as normal, I suppose, down in the corner, and the rest of the ground was filled with the United fans. I mean, it was amazing, really. 80,000 people there, and you'd guess that about 90% of that was United fans, and we officially sold 47,000 tickets. It looked like an awful lot more. But when there's nothing to really cheer about, I don't just mean the goals, because United won clearly, but when there's no rival supporters there to help build the atmosphere, and there's no real tension, because there certainly wasn't any tension in the game, then everything felt a bit flat. One of the most pathetic Mexican waves I've ever seen, sparked up by a bunch of very willing school kids, I have to say.
At Big Shimmery Wall called that a Mexican wave, which...
a piece of genius.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of pieces of genius, that first goal... Oh, somebody pointing out on, I think the Football Ramble podcast actually, that Robin van Persie, everyone sort of forgets about him during the summer because he's just not an off-field guy, he doesn't get into headlines for off-the-field stuff anymore in his life. And he just announced himself like, oh yeah, you all seem to be talking about signings in and out, talking about Wayne Rooney, all this kind of stuff. Just scored 2 goals, the first of which was an absolute peach.
It really was absolutely beautiful header. I mean, it gets better every time you look at it. Actually, real time looked pretty simple, but of course, far from that. Really fine goal. He was really happy about it as well. And it set up the perfect platform for United. I mean, what was that, 6 or 7 minutes in, and there was no real challenge from there. I mean, Wigan had a nice little spell at the beginning of the second half when they kept the ball pretty well. But I think David Gea was a spectator throughout. Did he actually make a save? If he did, it wasn't a serious one. And by the same token, United didn't create loads and loads of chances, did they? I mean, good shot from Welbeck, and then eventually the second goal came, but you never really felt as if the result was at risk.
No, few positives for United. I mean, Zaha, wow, I'm so excited. I am so excited about the way he plays the game, because there'll definitely be little bits of frustration and stuff, but honestly, if you're more frustrated than excited by a prospect like Zaha, I'm a bit confused about that, because there seemed to be an awful lot of end product involved as well.
I think he could do with releasing the ball quicker. So he got it, and he's got very quick feet. So he's what you'd expect of a young player, right? He's direct, and he's skillful, and he's looking to attack the fullback, and it didn't always come off, and sometimes it did. And I thought as the game went on, he lost a bit of confidence and started cutting back. And actually, he could have done with playing some one-touch football, opening the space out, or playing the first-time cross. So he'll learn that one. But yeah, retention of the ball for just a little bit too long. And I think he's smart enough to learn that he's got to move and act a little bit quicker at this level.
And I think that will definitely come, because it is a huge step up, and it's also a huge step up in terms of the types of players that you're playing with, so you can give the ball to them in slightly more challenging situations than you can. You don't need to do quite as much yourself as you needed to do as he needed to do at Crystal Palace. I mean, one thing that was really evident is that they were doubling and tripling up on him, and if he can get the ball out of his feet quicker to another player, that's going to create an awful lot of space for other fantastic players that United have, because you can't triple up on a Man United player and get away with it, really, can you?
I mean, look, there were some other positives. Michael Carrick had a decent game in midfield. Man of the match, I mean, I suppose. United controlled the ball in there for the most part. And Robin van Persie did score twice. I don't know. I might have given my man of the match elsewhere.
All Man United Man of the Match awards are rendered null and void as long as Man United keep insisting that the most retweeted player from at Man United's official Twitter account gets given the Man of the Match award.
Oh dear.
It's awful. Most retweet. I mean, it's like 14-year-old girls and boys. This is not gender specific, but their whole kind of obsessive Instagram. So love me social networking, and this is me talking. Somebody who tweets far too much.
Yes, you do, yeah. Love me at UTD Rancast. So, look, other positives. Patrice Evra had a good game, I thought. He had a very good season last season, and there's no reason to think he won't have another good season this season. Yes, he's ageing a bit, but physically he's in great shape. He had a good summer off, and kind of, I think, a bit redundant, all this talk of bringing Baines in. I can totally understand, sorry, I'm going off track here, of course, but I can totally understand why you might look to Baines. He's all right as a defender, but he put in more than 100 crosses during the season last season, so as an attacking outlet, he's outstanding. But, Patrice Evra isn't that far off in terms of the attacking quality, and I thought he had a good game. And basically across the back four, they weren't under an awful lot of pressure. Real shame about Raphael, of course. It looks like he's out for a month or so, but Smalling had a solid game, and Jones from right back had a decent game too.
Yeah, really unfortunate, the injury to Raphael. That's the last thing that we wanted, given how he seemed to have really got over that injury proneness last season. And that was obviously what predicated Jones playing at right back. It was really unfortunate, that whole thing, because one of the things that was so exciting was seeing Moyes selecting Jones at centre-back, because I think that's something that most United fans would like to see a lot more of. And so then that he had to play at right back was kind of unfortunate.
Yes, and I guess we'll come on to the Swansea game, but it'll be interesting to see who gets the nod at right back, because I suppose Jones and Smalling and Fabio will all be in contention for that one. Nod to Adnan Januzaj, who came on for a short period of time near the end, and nice to see him playing in his first competitive fixture for United. Do we count this as a competitive fixture?
I mean, it's counted on competitive fixture stats, but it definitely doesn't count as a trophy in meaningful trophy counts. Januzaj, we didn't really talk about the Rio testimonial, but it was a pretty lacklustre performance from a very makeshift United 11. It was a bit of a shame for Rio, really, because given he's one of those players that's completely obsessed with winning, it's quite sad that they got completely battered in that testimonial. But the one real bright spark was a magnificent performance from Adnan Januzaj. And you said on the pod last week that you think, he's still a bit slight, maybe not quite ready. I having seen him play, against proper teams, well, sort of proper teams, twice in the space of a week, I don't think physicality's too much of a problem, because he's a heck of a wiry lad, and they were trying to sort of muscle him off the ball quite a lot, and it just didn't work. The ball sticks to his feet, and he got round players and kept his feet, and crucial in setting up the goal for Valencia in Ferdinand's testimonial. Valencia, who was wearing the number 7 shirt in that testimonial, but not wearing it at the Community Shield. So a lot's been made of this. Of course, the conspiracy theory instantly started that this was because we were about to re-sign Cristiano Ronaldo, but Man United very quick to use their newly enhanced social media presence to say that Valencia had actually requested the change in shirt number.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I like this, because I guess he's wanting to hark back to when he was in good form, because the season before last he had a very, very good season, didn't he? Wearing the number 25 shirt, got the 7 shirt, and didn't have a good season, so there's an element of superstition, but there's also this element of the numbers weighing on him and the expectations weighing on him, and that doesn't feel very good to me. That feels like he's a player who lacks quite a bit of confidence in himself, and I'd have been tempted if I was Moyes to say, no, hang on, Alex Ferguson had the faith in you to give you that shirt number. You should honour it and go out and show that you're as good as those other number 7s throughout the ages. But there you go. I mean, it's not a really big deal, is it? But I guess it says something about his state of mind.
Yeah, Trisha asked what I thought of this in particular, being a person that works with people on confidence issues all the time. I mean, your approach of saying, no, you are good enough is definitely one theory, but the other theory is, well, okay, if it really was weighing on him, you don't lose anything by letting him wear the number 25. He's obviously going through a lot at the moment, Valencia, suffered a massive bereavement, had that horrendous season last season, and apparently asked for the number 7 shirt, which is kind of interesting twist on the whole thing. I mean, inarguably, from a kind of completely objective perspective, it doesn't matter what number you're wearing, if you're completely rationalist about this, but we don't live in a universe which is predicated on particularly rational ideals. The human experience is not a fundamentally rational one. The predecessor in the number 7 shirt was Michael Owen. If anything should be reducing the amount of pressure associated with that number, it's the fact that Michael Owen sat on the bench with it for 5 years previously, or 3 years previously, or whatever. But I think ultimately, if it's important to the player, it doesn't really matter that much. I kind of understand the argument that says, well, it indicates a bit of mental weakness. But on the other hand, it might just indicate a really good level of self-awareness, which is, this is the kind of player I want to be. I want to be a player who doesn't have the whole expectations of iconography on their back all the time. I want to be a player that's allowed to get away with a little more because I need to be, because I'm not Eric Cantona.
Two good, solid arguments there. I still think he probably could have done with a pat on the shoulder and saying, look, you're good enough, mate. But he won't be wearing it. Let's hope he finds some confidence from that, or the lifting of the burden of the number 7 shirt. It helps him in some way. Of course, it does not mean that Ronaldo is coming back. Forget it. Any other key points from the Community Shield? A decent platform on which to build, I think. Certainly nothing spectacular from United, and there was nothing in that tells me that United are about to blow away the Premier League, but again, nothing that really said it's going to be a disastrous season. At least there was a clean sheet, which hasn't happened very often through the pre-season.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's kind of interesting that the first time United are sort of required to step up to any level, they managed to keep a clean sheet, and you could say it's only against Wigan, but Wigan are an awful lot better than the teams we haven't been keeping a clean sheet against. Rooney not even at Wembley, apparently, and it did look for a little while like we might be without a number 7, a number 9 and a number 10 at Man United. But the club have been extremely forthright about saying that no, Wayne Rooney is not for sale at any price whatsoever to Chelsea.
Yes, using the Guardian as the conduit here to say they're drawing a line in the sand and they will not be giving in to player power on this occasion. And look, I can totally understand and respect this position. So the position is that if you strengthen your major rival, probably the major rival for the Premier League title, then you could very well have the Arsenal effect. Look what happened when they sold Robin van Persie to United. This is a key moment, and it would effectively be handing over some power to Chelsea, and United don't want to be that weak. I think they would shift him if PSG came in with a £40 million bid or so, of course. And, no one actually wants to give in to player power, but the fact is having Wayne Rooney moping around on the pitch does no one any good. Having him moping around in the dressing room is potentially pretty disruptive. So, I understand the argument of wanting to look strong and it being apparently a point of principle with the Glazers. Interesting to hear they have some principles, apart from let's make money and lots of it. Interesting, there's some parallels to Liverpool here. Liverpool have done a very similar thing and told Luis Suarez that he will not be leaving. And this week he came out with a statement and said, the fans have convinced him to stay. Oh, man. And if you believe that, well, you're a Scouser.
Yeah, Rooney, an extraordinary article in the Daily Mail, ghostwritten by Neil Ashton, but apparently just written word for word by Paul Stretford, talking about poor old Wayne Rooney and how incredibly sad he is. And I think once again, Rooney's camp's attempts at PR have just drastically backfired, because all that does is cement the idea of him as a kind of spoiled prima donna. I think in 2010 they lost the media war so dramatically to Alex Ferguson, and they're losing it again now, and I guess I'm a little biased in seeing it that way, but it definitely seems to be the case that they're not very good at swaying the tide of public opinion. And the most extraordinary thing about that article was that Neil Ashton described Wayne Rooney as having one of the best first touches in the world.
Yes, his first touch is so good I can't pass it as far, to bastardise a George Best comment. Yeah, ridiculous. I mean, it was a press release from Stretford's office director, Neil Ashton. Thank you very much. Do pass go, do collect your dollars. I don't feel in the slightest bit sorry for Wayne Rooney. There's part of me that feels a bit sick about him hanging around at Old Trafford for another year or more, frankly. I want him to actually show some commitment, otherwise I don't want him there at all. And he's shown no commitment for the past 3 years, as far as I can tell. And it doesn't mean that the performances and the goals might not come. They might do. Maybe they will, but he doesn't want to be a Manchester United player. That's pretty much the same for me as a fan turning around to me at a game and saying, I don't want to be a United fan anymore. Well, all right, there are many other options, mate. But part of me also enjoys the fact that United are standing strong on this one. And I'm off frequently, and this is pointed out to me quite often. I'm pretty critical of the club. I just kind of call it as I see it, I suppose. But on this occasion, I think if you decide that you will not strengthen a rival and that you will not give in to player power, quote unquote, then they're taking a very strong and firm hand, and I've got to applaud them for that. I wouldn't feel that sorry at all to see Wayne Rooney on the bench. I think Wayne Rooney, the prima donna, needs to come down to planet Earth, I think, on this occasion. He is no longer the star at United. Get over it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, the whole subject of Rooney's career at United is fascinating. It would make a really fascinating kind of long-form analysis, I think, because the incredible, intense promise of his early years, then the long period of tactically suffering from Ronaldo's excellence, basically. So that whole four forwards period for United, Rooney spent so much of that not playing up front. And I think that must have been, he has been sacrificed. His best position, he's not spent his career in his best position by any stretch of the imagination at United. But the flip side of that is he hasn't given the best of himself by all accounts. I don't know this personally, and maybe it's all completely not true, but the general gist of it is that he smokes, he drinks too much, he doesn't look after himself physically in the way that the very top level professionals have to.
I mean, there was all that talk of him coming back in the best shape for 5 years. That's very good. Why was he in such poor shape for the previous 5 years? I'm going to get fit because I've got to move to Chelsea coming up. So I have no sympathy. I've got to say, I have little or no sympathy for most footballers when they're desperate for a move. Talks of being a slave and all of that. I just think it's nonsense. They earn such wonderful, astronomical salaries and have such privileged lives that. And you think about the average fan, and these worlds are so far apart that it's hard to feel any sympathy. But for Wayne Rooney, absolutely none at all. I mean, he's won absolutely everything at United. They have given him a platform for his undoubted talents, and it's been fulfilled in spades. He's paid the best wage in Britain, basically, and he's still unhappy. There was a piece from Private Eye doing the rounds, and it basically said, extremely rich man is very unhappy in job, wants to move elsewhere. Well, quite.
None of it's ever black and white, is it? It's not as simple as United good, Rooney bad, It's just that Rooney hasn't done himself any favours in terms of public perception. I mean, ultimately, you said, it's quite good to see the club standing firm, and I agree, but let's have a bit of a conversation moving away from the personality of it. Assuming we do keep him, what does that mean for the season? I mean, the potential disruptive influence on the dressing room is unquestionably there, but also keeping Rooney whilst, as you said last week, there's a big quality gap if we lose him. There's all sorts of tactical issues created by the fact that Wayne Rooney stays at the club, right? What becomes then of Kagawa and Javier Hernandez in particular?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's the same statement as last season, isn't it? 3-2 don't go. So Kagawa and Rooney and Van Persie don't play on the same side without at least one of them compromising their position. And I guess if Rooney is going to start, Kagawa at best starts from the left, and that's not very good for him, really. It was interesting, a lot of positivity about the thought of Wayne Rooney going this summer because, and one of the major reasons was that we'd get to see Kagawa at number 10 playing in his proper position, which he really hasn't done very much, has he? And that would be nice, and some more game time for Chicharito, perhaps. We still don't know exactly how Moyes will set up tactically, do we? I mean, traditionally he's played with one, he played with two at the weekend, so strikers, that is. That also impacts on Kagawa. Will Wayne Rooney get a spot ahead of Van Persie? Not a chance, so he's playing in a slightly deeper position, the position he did for most of last year, and wasn't awfully good a lot of the time, and still put up decent numbers, but the performances weren't there, and nothing really about this pre-season tells us that the performances are going to come.
No, well, absolutely, because we just haven't seen him. I mean, but I would have loved it if he'd gone. Frankly, just for the newness, I think it's extremely sensible of the club not to sell him to Chelsea because I think that would be putting a pretty dangerous weapon in their hands at a time when we really don't need to be doing that. And the club don't need the money from the transfer. That's the other thing. We rightly take the mickey constantly out of United's relentless commercialisation, but it does mean that the club's on pretty secure financial footing at the moment, so it's not like they can't afford to let Wayne Rooney run out his contract and then leave for free.
Well, yes, they could do, and that's basically what Ed Woodward said. Of course, there is £356 million worth of debt still on the book, just
of course,
a piffling amount, really. I often find that amount down my sofa at Rant Towers, gold-covered Rant Towers, with virgins bathing me in milk.
They're covering those costs commercially, aren't they? I mean, that is what they're doing, and it's kind of incredibly unpleasant to watch, and it does mean that we're not as competitive in the transfer market as we should be. But, you know, the finances are not going to determine what happens with Wayne Rooney, are they?
United can afford to lose Rooney, of course they can, and afford to not take the fee, but I think if they were going to take a fee, they'd look for the biggest fee possible, obviously. You know, I know I'm stating the obvious there, so I think the key thing, as you said, is not strengthening a rival, and if they made that stand, that's a very sensible and good one. They're not about to become Arsenal, and I like that.
Yeah.
At least that shows a level of ambition, I suppose. You know, it's not the kind of level of ambition I'm looking for. I'm more on the Wayne Rooney October 2010 level of ambition of buying some world-class midfielders. Thank you very much.
Are we going to sign anyone, Ed? Please reassure me. Tell me it's all going to be all right. Surely we are going to buy a midfielder sometime soon, no?
I'm afraid this is speculation. I think that Fellaini is about Plan Z, so they'll drag that one out until the very, very last day while they look at other options, because if he was the one that they really wanted, the deal would have been done by now.
I mean, this is the thing about Fellaini. Like, you said pretty definitively last week on the podcast that he's just not the player that United need, and that David Moyes has worked with him for how long? How long's he been there? 4 years?
6 years, yeah.
6 years, right? A long time they've worked together, and so he knows his game inside out, and if he thought that he was the right fit for United and there was no question about it and he was the best option available, this would have been long done, because all the relationships exist, financial side wouldn't have been a problem, clause in the contract, the whole works, the whole thing just says, yep, Fellaini's a decent player, he'll definitely improve the quality of United's squad, but there is no way that his signing elevates them to a new level.
Yeah. It doesn't. I mean, it'd be squad filler, which has its place.
Yeah, we need him. We need it. We need a midfielder.
Yeah, sure. I suppose I'd feel a lot better about Fellaini if a world-class passing midfielder also came into the squad, because Fellaini is certainly not that. But anyway, look. One signing that it looks like United will make this week is the aforementioned Januzaj, who they're apparently close to signing a new contract with him. He's actually out of contract this time next year, which brings up the spectre of Paul Pogba and all of that, which should haunt everyone at United given his progress since he moved to Juventus.
Yeah, and I am properly overexcited about Januzaj. There's no question in my mind that I've lost the run of myself when it comes to that lad. He looks incredible to me, and I'm prepared to have my heart broken and be disappointed if he kind of turns out to not be really at the top level. But you were talking about that Ronaldo debut the last week on the show, the Ronaldo debut against Bolton, and Januzaj's not at that level yet, but I had some of them same feelings watching him a couple of times in the last week, step up to the first team. Kid looks like he's got it all to me.
The silky first touch and the way he kind of glides across the ground and his ability to pick out a pass or a cross or beat a man is it's actually, he's closer to Mesut Ozil in style, isn't he, given that we just talked about him earlier, not necessarily in playing position, but I suspect Januzaj will grow into a player who can play in any of the kind of forward positions, and he'll be a utility forward and a very talented one at that. Of course, there's a big way from having bags of talent and fulfilling it. It still is a long road for him, I'd say.
Absolutely, no question. And I wasn't talking about comparisons as a type of player, just in terms of that feeling of that kind of slight feeling of electricity around a player coming through from a young age and
very young age. He's 17 or 18, and he looks about 12.
He does. What year was he born? Do you know?
He was born in February '95. He'll be 19 in the winter.
Worth pointing out then that born after Manchester United signed Eric Cantona, which is my kind of definition of whether someone is a child or not. It's like...
It's good job Paul Scholes retired, because he made his United debut before that.
Yes.
And Ryan Giggs certainly did. Yeah. Ryan Giggs could be his dad, and I mean that quite literally.
Ryan Giggs is his dad, let's face it. Yeah, so anyway, lovely to see young players coming through at United, and then there's a few more knocking about the place, and it's been a while since we got since I got overexcited about United young players, so I'm gonna jump in with both feet and be prepared to have my heart broken by the inevitable passage of time or tweaking of a hamstring or whatever it is that happens to stop him fulfilling that potential, but hopefully that won't happen, and we'll see him become a United great and be talking about him in the same breath as Ryan Giggs in 50 years' time or whatever it would take.
We'll see. It may or may not happen. A few other young players made an impact this week. Michael Keane, Jesse Lingard and Tom Thorpe all played for England under-21s. England under-21s beat their Scottish counterparts 6-0 on Tuesday, and that was positive for all of them. Keane played the whole game. Lingard came on as a late substitute. That was his debut for England under-21s, and you can't say he hasn't deserved that after the pre-season he's had with the United. And Tom Thorpe was a very, very late substitute in defence as well. But, 3 players who are very talented there, as you mentioned.
And Jesse Lingard apparently gaining a lot of plaudits from his performance in that game as well. So that's lovely to see. And talking of United-related youngsters in England, Roy Hodgson saying this week that Ravel Morrison's performances in pre-season had put him very much on the England radar again, which I'm really happy for him. Really tore it up in Birmingham last season, and I don't mean causing problems in the city. I mean, was excellent on the pitch and seems to have got his head together to a certain extent. So that's really nice to see, and good luck to him for this season at West Ham. Hope he makes an impact in the Premier League.
Yeah, I heard lots of good things about him in pre-season. So yeah, lots and lots of positive noises. Maybe he's got his act together.
Yeah, that would be great.
He really needed to. I guess, hindsight gives us some clarity, doesn't it? And he definitely needs to get out of United as much as United needed him to get out of the club. And maybe it's a positive move for him. Shame, isn't it? He fulfills that talent because there's so much of it there. And a shame that he couldn't do that at Old Trafford. Just circumstance. But yeah, good luck to him. Let's hope he has matured in some way. It really didn't look like that would ever happen.
But yeah, I mean, leaving Manchester, not so much obviously the club, but Manchester the city, where he had lots of pretty problematic connections.
But there's no trouble to be had in East London, of course.
No, none whatsoever.
So international football, I mean, since we've made something of a segue there are quite a few other United players featured this week. Patrice Evra back for France. Have a hate-love relationship with Patrice Evra, don't they, over there? And obviously the 6 United players in the England squad would have been 7, bar for Michael Carrick's early departure, some weird injury. Shinji Kagawa scored for Japan against Uruguay to you and me. And Johnny Evans played against Russia, boo, who were very mean to Northern Ireland this week.
What happened?
Well, Fabio Capello, new Russian manager, said, I'm not going to bother replacing an injured player. We're only playing Northern Ireland.
It's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? There's plenty of other reasons for booing Russia at the moment. International world-class sport appears to be a pretty revelatory bastion of homophobia at the moment, given the World Cup going to Qatar and the Olympics going to Russia. Unpleasant scenes all round, I think we can agree.
We can.
Talking of Patrice Evra and his relationship with France, it's like the sort of opposite of Rooney and United, isn't it? Like, Rooney obviously cares a lot more about playing for England than he does about playing for United. Patrice Evra is a proper old-fashioned club-over-country chap, isn't he?
The dynamic with Rooney and him posting on Facebook the other day saying it's great to see the faith shown in him by Roy Hodgson. Yeah, everyone saw that as a dig at Moyes. I'm not sure it was, but still, it seems that England's his primary thing. And Patrice Evra, he's never really been au fait, has he, with the Les Bleus, and led the revolution, or at least partly led the revolution at 2010 World Cup, and the public hate him. He got booed at some France games, and he never feels like he's entirely and totally committed, but they keep picking him, they keep picking him.
He's so good though. He's so brilliant, Patrice Evra. I think he's really underrated because he had a bit of a dodgy, maybe season and a half, maybe, at a period of time when he played 5 seasons in a row all summer long and plays every game for United, and then had that revolution, all that stuff, and it kind of affected him, I think. But yeah, he's just on form. He's a wonderful player. You mentioned earlier about Baines's contribution to the attack, and Nick at Man United Youth made a brilliant point on the Red Mancunian podcast that people sort of assume that if Baines came to United, that would automatically juxtapose that level of assists, but actually he would probably be much closer to Patrice Evra's level of attacking contribution because there are so many other players who provide attacking contributions at United in a way there aren't at Everton. So it's just much less likely to tactically come from the left back.
Yes, not the only attacking conduit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, very true. And actually, Patrice Evra put up very good numbers last season. So if I did a blog post at the end of last season, if you go and find that on the website, you'll see I put up some of the numbers about Patrice Evra and his improvement over the course of the season. And as I said, he had a fine campaign. There were the mistakes that most defenders do make some, and that Patrice Evra throughout his career has made the odd mistake, positional mistakes. It's almost always positional mistakes with Evra, and that's because he bombs forward. United tend to leave 2v2 central defence versus attacking defence, and didn't quite have it right in midfield for much of the first half of last season. Corrected it after the winter, and Patrice Evra also had a very good second half of last season. Right? And none of that is by accident. Ferguson spotted a problem, fixed it. It made United somewhat boring to watch, but actually solved the leaky defence. We'll see this season because, of course, there will be an evolution, and it's been a bit difficult in pre-season with United and shipping goals. So the goalkeepers changed quite a bit. All the defenders have changed quite a bit. You do tend to get this in pre-season, and Evra has kind of shared the jersey with Alex Butner, who's never going to be good enough for United, but he's still at the club.
Absolutely. Abby's at the club because him and Robin van Persie are best mates, I think. That or something to do with the fact that Man United have now got an Instagram account and they need Butner to show him how to use it, which means that inevitably it will essentially just be pictures of Alex Butner's tattoos, because that's what's going down on Butner's Instagram.
Yeah, you see, look, if we're going to use Instagram, we need to tell some of the players, stop adding stupid filters. Zaha does this all the time. All the time. Mate, you're not purple, all right?
Zaha's big into the Ready Brek filter, isn't he? The kind of that's a reference that he himself would not get. One for the older listeners there. He's always got the glowing edges thing going on.
He has indeed. Talking of social media, tell me what this means, because I didn't quite understand it. This is Rio Ferdinand on Twitter. He said he just wanted to thank all the fans who showed their support and his testimonial. Fine, I understood that one. Still a wobbly-god tosser, isn't he? But, hey.
No, he's fine. He's a nice chap, isn't he?
I'm kidding. And he said, shame about the result, but we dusted ourselves down and had a trophy to win at Wembley against Wigan, and Robin van Persie, a.k.a. RVP, a.k.a. Robin van Pizzle, got 2 goals.
You're not familiar with the work of Snoop Doggy Dogg, then, Ed? Snoop Lion. So you know what the hizzle is, right? So the hizzle is in the house. If you're in the hizzle, that means you're in the house. If you're the rizzle dizzle, that means you're the real deal. That's is Robin van Pizzle.
These young people, I don't understand them at all. I did notice that Rio, despite his ban on wearing anything to do with his #5 brand, wore the 5 cap frequently all week and during some interviews as well.
Yeah, the pre-match interview with BT Sport, oh my goodness. That testimonial was pretty significant because it marked testimonials often have ex-United players coming back to play for the club again. This didn't have that. This had Owen Hargreaves coming back to commentate on the club. At one point, Owen Hargreaves said, every player that plays for Manchester United has a love affair with the club. I was like, wow, that was a love affair that started with a kind of burning, passionate intensity and then just sort of slowly drifted over time, ending in bitterness and recriminations.
Isn't it always the way?
Yeah, mate.
And then they find that the love of their life has gone. And I think maybe Owen Hargreaves has come to realise that, as Ruud van Nistelrooy did before him, and Jaap Stam, and David Beckham, and not Paul Ince.
No, did he ever have... Yeah, I mean, he did, didn't he?
I don't think he's ever reconciled his bitterness.
No. Oh, poor old Paul Ince, eh? No. That's probably a thing that no one's ever said, right?
And nor should they. Now, there is actual football coming up. A real game that means something, and there are points and whatnot on the table. United go to the Liberty Stadium for the first Premier League game of the season. I think this is like a 5:30 kickoff on Saturday, something like that. I'm looking forward to it. An actual, real competitive game.
I mean, couldn't be more exciting, could it? We've had all the warm-up, we had the almost proper adjacent football match in the Community Shield, and now the actual real business of trying to defend the league wins. The league begins. Robin van Persie asked about United's chances and why they were third favourites in a post-match interview, sort of laughed, looked vaguely offended and said, you do know we're champions, right? He obviously has no qualms about the fact that United will be competing for the big trophy this season, and I'm pretty sure there will be be up there till pretty late on in the season at worst. And it all starts with an incredibly tough run of fixtures. After Swansea away, Chelsea, and I think it goes Chelsea, Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Man City. Oh, I might have that slightly wrong, but it's there or thereabouts. And it's a very tough run of fixtures, starting with a really difficult one. Swansea strengthened over the summer, signing John Joe Shelvey, which, we all make fun of John Joe Shelvey because Liverpool fans treated him like the second coming, and he was heavily featured in the laughable documentary Being Liverpool. But he's not a bad player, and a good signing for Swansea, and a very, very promising player up front in Boney, who will take some of the goal-scoring pressure off Michu if all goes well.
Yeah, I mean, 46 and 65 for Vitesse, Boney. He knows how to find the back of the net. Mind you, that is in Holland, and we all know that goals in Holland don't count the same.
No, well, they do if you're Ruud van Nistelrooy, but not if you're Matthijs Kesman.
Yeah, well, quite. So look, he's a good signing for Swansea. I think he's kind of physical lad. He scores goals. He's plenty of movement. I haven't seen him loads, but I've seen him a few times. I've probably seen him for Côte d'Ivoire more than Vitesse. Very, very rare occasions I ever watch Dutch football. Normally when I'm having a period of insomnia and feel like watching ESPN at 3 a.m. Talking of which, just as a sidetrack, I have a cable service at home, sponsored by the brand what Richard Branson owns and all that, and they no longer carry ESPN, so I can't get the Premier League football. But I don't get BT Sport either. Where's my discount, Virgin? You still start charging me the same amount?
ESPN doesn't exist anymore in England, right? It's just stopped broadcasting, hasn't it?
It's just stopped broadcasting, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great on-screen... ESPN has shut down, but you can still get your sport fix with Eurosport and Sky Sports News. Hey!
Hooray! That's very good if you like cycling or football with commentary blatantly recorded afterwards in the studio. Yeah, the Swansea game. I mean, Laudrup stayed at Swansea. That's a really big deal for them potentially, and they've really potentially got a platform to build on there. And obviously, we all know that they play very nice football. And in Michu, they had the star signing of last season that wasn't called Robin. And it's exciting times if you're a Swansea fan. And United have not found it plain sailing since the Swans came up, have they?
No, absolutely. I mean, tough away fixture there last season for sure. Interesting tactical shift though, I think, with Boney coming in. Michu will probably play a lot deeper, more in the position that he played in Spain, which will be interesting because, of course, he scored an awful lot of goals playing as effectively a number 9 for Swansea last season. Yeah,
also scored a lot of goals in Spain playing deeper though, didn't he? So,
Yeah, lad knows how to find the back of the net. As I said, I think it's a good signing for Swansea. I think they'll consolidate fine. I don't know where they'll finish. Somewhere between sort of 7th and 12th is my guess. But I suppose I ought to do my proper predictions for the season, hadn't I? We briefly touched on that last season, but I think they'll be absolutely perfectly safe. They play good football. Laudrup, maybe got them playing a little more direct from back to front. I don't mean direct, but a little quicker from the back to front than they had done previously. But, they're still a fine footballing side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Moyes lines up. So this is our first opportunity to look silly of the season. No doubt not even close to our last. But how do you think that United are going to line up against Swansea? What do you think the personnel will be? Will there be a place in the side for Rooney? What's the likelihood of Zaha being in the starting lineup? Do you think Januzaj will get a place on the bench?
Yeah, all good questions. So I can't see Rooney starting. He's just not fit enough, and I really wouldn't be that surprised if he picked up another mystery injury. A bit of a tight hamstring after the England game, all that between now and the weekend, and suddenly wasn't in the squad. But let's assume he's totally fit. He may make the bench. He's had very little pre-season football, so I wouldn't expect him to start. I would expect that United will start with a pretty familiar-looking back four. No reason to think that De Gea and Vidic and Ferdinand and Evra and one of Jones and Fabio or Smalling will start a right back, and then through midfield looks like he's going to start with a basic 4-4-2. We'll see about that one, and you'd expect Valencia to start, and we'll see on the left, Zaha maybe will get a chance, and cleverly will start with Carrick through the middle and Van Persie and I guess Welbeck as well, and you'd expect it to be something like that.
I'm not at all sure that I think that Valencia is going to start ahead of Zaha on the right. I mean, Zaha definitely seems to be a right winger rather than a left winger, doesn't he? And so, I think there's genuine competition for place there. Zaha started in the Community Shield, which is pretty significant. And yeah, the left side, then if you do do play very 4-4-2-y. I mean, so far he's just picked Giggs, hasn't he? You know, that's been the way he's done it, and eventually that's going to stop working because Giggs will run out of steam and you will have to rotate him a bit more aggressively. I mean, Giggs has played an awful lot of football in pre-season.
He really has, yes, and of course he could well start in Swansea. I suppose the experience is useful, first game of the season and all of that, yeah, maybe. And Nani's not quite fit, is he? And neither is Ashley Young. Picked up another injury by the sounds of it. He just spends more time in the treatment table than he does on the pitch, and he spends very little time on the pitch doing anything of any use.
Yeah, I mean, there's the central midfield berth is obviously a huge question mark. I mean, if Carrick recovers from his eye injury, which, not eye injury, but his eye infection, he did look pretty rough in some of those post-match photographs. His eyes the size of he had bad pink eye, basically. So hopefully he'll be recovered in time to play, because otherwise we're really in trouble.
Well, Anderson and Cleverley will start, which I suppose, 2 years ago they had a very good partnership for a while there, didn't they? Anderson, who came on, ran around like a bit of a headless chicken, played a good couple of simple passes, whacked one outrageous ball about 50 yards of the outside of his foot, and then promptly found the opposition for the rest of the match. So that is Anderson all over. I'm just expecting him to have a couple of good games so everyone can get excited and then get injured again.
Yeah, it's coming, and it could start against Swansea because, Anderson didn't play in the Community Shield, played in Rio's testimonial instead. Obviously, a bit of second billing there. But you'd imagine he'll be fresher than Cleverley, who's played for England, and so I wouldn't be surprised by a Carrick-Anderson central midfield pairing at all.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, oh God, please let us sign a central midfielder. Please let us sign a central midfielder. We just need one so much, Ed.
Who do you have to suck off these days to get a central midfielder?
Luka Modric? No.
Well, it's tempting, I've got to say. I'll let you take the honour with that one.
No. Please don't ask us Rankcast questions. Look, let's just cut this whole bit out of the show. At Sir Konez says, will Adnan Pinch My Cheeks Januzaj make the bench on Saturday? I think he's got a very good chance of making the bench.
I don't know. It might be after his bedtime. It's 5:30, isn't it, the kick-off?
That's true. Alex Chase 83 says, what does Ed have negative to say about Jeffrey Kondogbia as a potential midfield signing?
I don't know him really well. I mean, he's got a very cheap release clause and he's rated quite highly. I mean, I don't have a very strong opinion either way.
Okay, well there you go. That was pretty not negative, wasn't it? This one I'm sure you can't answer, Ed. But at Jonas Holmes 21 says, do you think RVP played Paragon or Renegade when playing Mass Effect? Unquestionably Paragon. Look at his face. How could he do anything others? Just credit to at Cramping Both Legs for the question about style or steel. At JJ Carley says, scenario, David Moyes signs no one but does a 95 and goes with youth for the upcoming season. Happy ? The personnel isn't there. This is the thing. In 95, you had players that could play in all the positions where we got rid of players, but we don't have central midfielders coming through. There's no one in that crop of young players who's Paul Scholes or Nicky Butt or even David Beckham in terms of players that could play central midfield.
Yeah, it's nowhere near. And look, we got excited about Lingard and Januzaj this summer. Fair enough, they've merited that excitement on their performances, but I think they've just got just a bit more to go before they can have that kind of impact. When the group of the class of 92 came through, they were so ready and they were so good, and Ferguson really trusted them, and it's a different world now. It's really difficult for Moyes to do that. He might be forced to, of course, if United don't actually get anyone, but that would be very embarrassing. I know I keep playing the cynic here, but my God, how embarrassing would it be for United after playing the big I am all summer and saying they've got a shed load of cash to spend and then coming up empty-handed. So we'll see. I would be really surprised if he starts throwing in 3 or 4 young players in a game.
Yeah, I mean, at @WeSum_ says who could be a surprise favourite starter under Moyes this season, and I've already kind of laid my Januzaj cards firmly on the table. I'm not claiming to be entirely rational about that one, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if he actually becomes a first-team fixture, although, being a kind of inside forward, there is a lot of competition for place in that particular position, and he's definitely been involved in pre-season a lot more because Kagawa and Rooney have not. So,
yeah, I'd look to the fringes more for the surprises, right? So, and I don't know whether you'd call them surprises. So, I don't think Januzaj is going to start a load of games this season. I don't think Zaha will start a load of games this season. I'm pretty sure that Lingard won't either. Let's be rational about this. But the surprise could be Fabio could force his way into the side. Got all the talent, and it just depends on whether he can apply it or not and keep fit. And so could Smalling, and I'm not sure that's really a surprise, but he's certainly the Moyes type player, I think, and I think he could force his way into the side on a permanent basis too. Are either of those surprises? I don't know, but it'd be a change, I suppose. Another piece of news, I suppose, reported this week that Nani is now prepared to sign a contract at United after United spent much of the last year trying to sell him.
I'm sure we talked about this before. It's like, oh, that's very nice, Nani dear. We're not necessarily prepared to offer you one. Before we move off Twitter questions, all the love in my heart to @bifurcated_MUFC, who got a bunch of Rankcast listeners together to make a lip dub of the Calypso. I'm just so incredibly grateful to M. Betts, Kononov, Liz Worsley, White Pele 10, Red Zeppelin 7, Don McDowell, Maz_man_United, and @Awate91 for all getting together and making that. Brought a wee tear to the eye, so it did. Couldn't believe that listeners would be so kind as to take all that time out of their lives to put something so kind of sweet together for us. And
amazing stuff.
Yeah, made both of us feel very appreciated, so thank you very much.
It certainly did. And next, send your knickers in. No, don't.
Oh no, you do this every time. Every time they do something nice, you start demanding underwear.
Hey, got to get my fix somehow.
Yes. So anyway, that was super cool. I guess talking of fix, we need to use our inside information about the match fixing to predict the score. Before we predict the score, Ed, you said that the right back would be Fabio, Smalling or Jones. What's your sort of gut instinct?
I think you'll go with Jones. That's the gut. Okay. I'd like him to go with Fabio because I want Jones to start competing for the pace at centre-back, and I think Fabio's got tons of talent. He's got as much talent as his brother. He just needs to get the game time to prove it.
I'd kind of like him to start with Fabio at right back and Jones in central defence. That's what I'd really like to see. Jones partnered with either Rio or Vidic.
Yeah.
With Fabio on the right, and no reason why that can't happen.
It's a good shout. And a prediction for the score?
Oh... it's always tricky to predict score lines. It's a kind of ridiculous exercise, but we insist on doing it every week. And this one feels extremely difficult because there is barely a result that would be surprising unless there's a sort of astronomical score line. You could easily see Swansea winning, United winning, a draw. All that seems very likely. So I'm going to slightly go with heart over head and say 2-1 to United.
Well, I wouldn't go with anything to do with heart. Showed his world-class credentials again for England.
Bless him and his little flappy hands.
It's quite satisfying, I think, isn't it, how the hair's grown and Hart has been rubbish for a good 12 months.
Not so much the Hart being rubbish bit, but yeah, I will always love the fact that De Gea is getting better and better, and it does give a nice little side note to the sweetness of that, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Anyway, I digress because I don't know what the score will be, and so I'm trying to put off the hard decision to sit on the fence and say it'll be 2-2.
I mean, actually, a draw is a pretty terrible result for United, I think, given the fixtures that are upcoming. I actually think it's one of the most important opening day fixtures we've had for a long time, because out of those five first fixtures, this is definitely the second easiest, and it's still pretty difficult. I think ordinarily you would say that get off to a slow start. Last season we obviously were terrible at Goodison Park with an injury-racked central defence, and we lost that game and went on to win the title. But I think narratively it's a pretty crucial result for Moyes, because you start to build a positive momentum ahead of the really tough fixtures ahead. I do think it's unusually important for an opening fixture.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sound analysis. It's a really, really tough 6 weeks coming up. I think you could set the tone for that period of time with a good victory. I think it'll be tough for United, though. I mean, have been leaking goals, players injured, haven't quite found the rhythm yet. So Swansea very good at home. Draw sounds about right to me. I'd love to be wrong, of course. I'd love for United to go and spank them for 6 and start the season in fantastic fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. And throughout that 6 weeks and the season beyond, we'll be here to cover the ins and outs and ups and downs of United's campaign all throughout the season as we deal with the settling in of new dad and the ins and outs of transfers and the Wayne Rooney saga and all the different malarkey that's going to happen across the course of the season. And we'll be here with you every step of the way. So from me and Ed this week, thank you very much for all your lovely questions and feedback, and we'll be back same time next week.
See you soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.